So, guys, I want to talk about All Elite Wrestling, and I do want to talk a little bit about Forbidden Door and Blood and Guts. And I actually think that, what they should do is like flip it around, really. Like, I don't think Forbidden Door is a very profitable pay per view, and definitely Blood and Guts would be the more profitable one. And as I've talked about, and as CM Punk and other people have talked about that, I think that when you look at AEW, the issue is that it's a very big vanity project type of company. And that just is not what's going to make it successful. And like I've said, if you have MJF versus Hechicero, John Moxley versus Tetsuya Naito, um, what's that? Mercedes Moné versus Mina Shirakawa, and a couple of other matches like that. It's not really going to attract an audience just because most people don't know who these people are that are wrestling these wrestlers. So I think that I think like the big thing that I want to say is that I think that Blood and Guts should be a pay per view, and it should be kind of AEW's like hardcore pay per view and just be really violent. And I was going to give you guys a bit of a match card. That I think that what I would do is I would have like the Young Bucks versus the Acclaimed, and what I would do with that match is that I would just have that start the show. Like there's no like hardcore stuff in it. And then the Blood and Guts match is going to be the Acclaimed, Swerve Strickland, MJF, and I would even say, put Samoa Joe in there, or you put like Darby Allin or another wrestler in there versus the Elite and Hangman Adam Page, or you put in one member of the Don Callis family, and then it's revealed that the Don Callis family with Will Ospreay is trying to take over AEW along with the EVPs, and you have that as your main event, and then it kind of leads into Wembley Stadium where Ospreay is now a heel, and then also, in addition to that, you have it at the end of a pay-per-view, so it's definitely, very it's definitely like very controversial to have that. I would also kind of say that another thing that I would do is that you just saw like John Moxley have a very bloody match, and in New Japan Pro Wrestling, what would happen if he was defending the IWGP title against like Tetsuya Naito in a bloody match? What would happen if you had MJF versus Rush in a bull rope match? And there's definitely an audience for AEW when they become super violent. Really, what would happen if you had Will Nightingale versus Mercedes Moné and a last man standing type of match? So there's a lot of like different match types that you can do. And I think the other thing too is that, like if you think about Forbidden Door, if you think about like Blood and Guts, it precedes AEW Wembley Stadium. So you can definitely have like a Hell in a Cell and a Elimination Chamber type of feel. Like, as I said, like what would happen if you had a tournament for the vacant women's ROH title, because Athena is I think she's going to vacate that. So what would happen if you had a tournament and the the semifinals was going to be, okay, let's say you had a tag team, 2 female wrestlers versus 2 female wrestlers, and the winner of that tag team, the 2 people become number 1 contenders. They have to face each other, and then they become the ROH champion, and they're gonna be crowned that at Wembley Stadium. What's gonna happen if it's a hardcore tag team women's match? Or what would happen if you even did that with the men's? If you had Mark Briscoe, who's a hardcore wrestler, and you had him face like Christian Cage or Luchasaurus or somebody like that, really, it's. And then hardcore matches translate more to an American audience versus, like a foreign invasion type of thing, really. So I just think that, for more marketability, it's good. You can end some feuds. You can have something that creates a penultimate for Wembley Stadium. And then honestly, too, imagine if you had somebody like like the Infantry, the Captain Sean Dean and Castle Bravo, I believe his name. They're both like underdog tag teams. What if they said something like, we want to face FTR because we want to prove that we are somebody? We want to just have a great big victory to prove that we can be tag team champions. And what if they win that match against the FTR, and then the Young Bucks say, we want to challenge you, but we also want to embarrass you at Wembley Stadium. And then you set up something like that where some underdog goes through Blood and Guts, and then they have a match at Wembley Stadium, and that match at Wembley Stadium is kind of like, them also proving themselves one more time on the biggest stage. What would happen if you had somebody like Dalton Castle say, there's a lot to me, and I don't get a lot of shine really. So I want to have a match with, Brian Cage or somebody else who I want to face I want to have a challenge. I want to have somebody that I can show what I can really do against. And then you see Dalton Castle versus Brian Cage. Obviously, Brian Cage is a big beefy boy, a killer. What would happen if you had a match like that? What would happen if you had Samoa Joe and Hook go after the ROH tag team titles, and you have a match with that real? What would happen if you had the Bull Club Gold, who have baseball bats, versus Christian and the Patriarch? We have Luchasaurus, who's a strong man, and you have a match like that, and then they hold the tag team titles. And what would happen, though they hold the trio style, what would happen if you do the Learning Tree versus the Patriarch, Christian Cage versus Chris Jericho? I think a lot of people would love to see that one with the stadium. So there's a lot of things you can do to kind of set up bigger matches. And then again, you're using your AEW roster for these matches. And as I said, you can work with GCW, because obviously with GCW, at least people know who they are, and they're American wrestlers who can talk on the microphone and have great feuds. They're not like somebody like Hachicero, who can't talk because he speaks Spanish, or Mina Shirakawa, or other people who can't speak that much English, So I think for all purposes involved, I think for next year they should get rid of Forbidden Door, or they should have Forbidden Door in June and try Blood and Guts for July and do something with it. I really think that, they're really just ignoring a way for them to make a lot of money. Like, Blood and Guts really needs to be pay-per-view, and I really think they need to nix Forbidden Door.